Let's bring on the voice of the Orange, Matt Park. Matt, what's your go-to food of choice or drink of choice when you come out to the fair?
And deep fried anything, probably.
Yeah.
What do you think of this, Matt?
State fair.
They have pizza this year, but it's shaped like an ice cream cone. So the crust is the cone, and then they just put all the toppings in the cone.
I wouldn't turn it down, but I don't. It sounds weird to me.
Yeah, same. I don't know that I would seek it out either.
We all have been there when you have the cold pizza on the second or third day, and it takes a different shape at that point.
Right.
Probably wouldn't buy it that way.
Yeah, right. All right, let's talk some football now. And, I guess let's start with the quarterback position. We've been talking about it for months. Who is going to win this job? Steve Angeli, Ricky Collins. We got our answer on Monday. What's your take on the quarterback situation?
I thought it would be all along. Close. Two guys that are talented, highly recruited, major conference level, national title contending type programs, and haven't played a lot. And Angeli's played a little bit more and maybe is a little more suited to what they're trying to do offensively, at least at the beginning here. So he gets the nod for now, and I think you've got a really strong backup too.
You say for now, how concerned are you with the position that you think that they would have to, without injury, switch?
Not.
Okay.
I think you also are going into a situation where, knock on wood, your second and third games are two of your lighter opponents for the year. I don't think he's going to play Collins just for the sake of it against Tennessee, but with all due respect to the opponents and everything you're trying to do here, and UConn's probably better than people want them to be, maybe your second and third quarterbacks get some run in the second and third games. So you've got a little feel there. We know how uncommon it is for a quarterback to be upright and play the whole year. One of Kyle McCord's accomplishments last year is that he took all the meaningful snaps for the season. You can't count on that. So you're going to have an option. But no, do I think they're looking over their shoulder or looking for a time when they're going to hand it off or any of that? No, I think that Angeli's the quarterback. Collins is the backup with some development in mind, and then a couple more people are distant third and fourth.
Matt, what are your expectations for this offense? We've talked about it on the show about how much of last year was Kyle McCord, how much was the Jeff Nixon offense. The answer is probably somewhere in the middle. But what is your expectation for how effective Steve Angeli can be in this offense? With he's got one start under his belt. He's played in a bunch of games, but he's certainly not Kyle McCord. How prolific can he be in this offense, in your opinion?
I think he can be pretty good. I think again, McCord was great, and he's not here anymore. And so I don't think it's fair to keep comparing everybody to him, but your kind of idea of what's different or, what's more realistic. I'm not going to claim I've seen a ton of Steve Angeli. I think the difference may just be really in the deep ball. I mean, McCord was a great deep ball thrower and hit on a lot of them. Angeli might just take it in smaller chunks. I think the offense works. Granted, it's going to practice, okay, but there's somebody open in practice all the time. And they have checkdowns and route combinations that put the defense in a bind to make sure there's always somebody to throw the ball to. And I think they have a pretty deep core of pass catchers. The receivers are long and athletic. They're obviously not afraid to throw the ball to people out of the backfield. And I think Sin Willis and Will Nixon in particular can catch the ball out of the backfield and go. So the offensive line, yes, there's a lot of new people, but it's big. They've worked in various combinations, and they'll settle on 5 and go. So I'm reasonably confident that the offense will be pretty good. Maybe not quite as good as last year, but I don't think they have. The Quinn Allen was great. He wasn't explosive like Sean Tucker, and I'm not sure they've got explosive. 60-yard touchdown runners like Sean Tucker seemed to do on a regular basis. But I think they've got a lot of weaponry and can move the ball in chunks.
Let me ask you about a position that Syracuse fans obsess about now that Aronde Gadsden's gone. Do you think this offense will throw to Dan Villari or whoever's playing tight end?
Yeah, a little bit. I just don't understand what people's infatuation is with that. But it's become kind of a running theme. They're different guys. Villari's kind of a thicker guy, not as tall or as rangy as Gadsden, but he's tough as nails, hard to bring down. I think he gets used in the middle of the field for sure. And they've got other people at that position, Jamie Trimble and David Clement, when they're healthy, that are also very big pass-catching targets. But Villari, for me, is kind of a bowling ball and has an opportunity to get in the middle of the field, run people over. I wouldn't compare him to Gadsden.
There's been a lot of talk about Demetrius Samuel Jr. During the preseason. Fran said on Monday that he has locked down a starting job at cornerback and will be worked in at wide receiver. As you said, they've got a lot of pass catchers. Doesn't seem like they need him all that much at wide receiver. Do you think we're going to see him at wide receiver early in the year, or do you think it's strictly going to be, all right, young man, go out, do your job on defense. We'll get to the both sides of the ball thing a little bit later?
I think he will be in there. I don't think he's in the top group or, as you said, quote unquote, needed right now. I don't think that's their only option as a game breaker, and he's got to be in there. Or, the Travis Hunter thing, it's an outlier. I think there's a little bit of a trend here where you'll see two-way players. I think Tennessee might have a player go two ways for a little bit as well. But Samuel obviously is a tremendous prospect here and is prepared beyond his years if he's going to come in as a true freshman and start at corner. It's not that easy. And so you do that. Now you line him up at wide receiver here and there. I just think it's something that gets sprinkled in. I don't it's too early to tell for me how much of an impact he makes on offense, but it's going to be more than zero. He is going to be out there at some point. I wouldn't be surprised at all if he's a wide receiver in the opening game. I think it's a great recruiting tool if you have that type of person, and fun story to watch, and it could be really awesome if he impacts the game on both sides.
How concerned are you about the place-kicking situation?
I think Jaden O has gotten a little better than last year, stronger leg. Until watching Fran's comments here from a couple days ago, I was just assuming that he kind of had it in position, had it locked. Trip Woody, does he get there? Maybe he does. So, yeah, I don't know that I'm especially concerned, but I don't think there's an all-conference caliber player there either. I don't think it's let's see how it plays out. I hope they just have a regular solid guy. That right. One of those two guys gets the job done with anything spectacular, 50 yards and up, just being considered as kind of a bonus.
Yeah. All right, let's say, I know it's still a little bit early, but let's touch on the opener if we could. And, you look at this Tennessee team, went to the college football playoff last year. Really good defense. They got a lot of questions on offense. New quarterback. They lose their stud running back. What do you make of this Tennessee team? How difficult is this opener going to be for the Orange?
Yeah, tough. I mean, obviously it's a talented team with a lot of good recruits and depth. I think everything that I gather about Tennessee has to do with the defense leading the way and buying time for the offense to mature. They have named Joey Aguiar the starting quarterback. That was no surprise. He's been very productive, but he's also thrown a ton of interceptions, 24 interceptions total in the last 2 years at Appalachian State. It's interesting, going back and looking at Josh Heupel's playing career, he threw a lot of interceptions in his day too, and he was a very, very good quarterback that was runner-up for the Heisman Trophy. They like to play fast. There's a challenge in that. I think there's a challenge with both teams playing fast in the very first game of the year. So that's an intriguing one. So Tennessee is good. They're ranked for a reason and have high hopes in the SEC. I think it's a really exciting opener.
What are your expectations with this season? I'm sure you've fielded a ton of questions from fans you run into about the schedule and can they get to 6 wins? How do you field that question when people ask you if you think it'll be a bowl team this year?
Well, everybody knows the schedule's difficult, but that's all on paper too. It very well could play out to be that difficult. But are you completely sure that all of those teams, and in particular, I'm looking at Georgia Tech, SMU, maybe Tennessee to a lesser extent, that they're all going to be world beaters or all going to be as good as they were last year? You don't really know that. They're all, the fact that they're all away from home is probably the more concerning part, because at home or on the road, rather, you don't really sort of expect breaks to come your way and to get the types of bounces that put you in games against teams that are as or more talented. So it's daunting. The thing I think is cool is the head coach is great. He's not backing down. He didn't make the schedule, but there's nothing that can be done about it anyway. So they're going to go take their shot. I think they'll be competitive against those teams. I think it puts a real premium on the home schedule. If it's really as black and white as we're all led to believe, then you pretty much have to go undefeated at home, right? So that kind of makes for an intriguing season ticket and the different things that go on at home. And you've got teams coming into the Dome, like I said, that are probably better than you want them to be. UConn isn't horrible. Duke won, 9 games last year and has a hotshot quarterback coming in. Carolina's coached by maybe the greatest football coach there's ever been. So there's challenges every week. That's kind of the cost of playing at this level. I think the Syracuse team has more good players and is deeper than it's been in a long time. And I think you go out and take your chances. That's the attitude I get from everybody.
All right, Matt, before we let you go, while we're talking schedules, I tend to think it's a basketball town still. Basketball schedule is all wrapped up and done. Anything stick out to you in it?
Nah, not really. I think, again, there's the kind of challenges with that about in the tournament in Vegas. You're dealing with 2 title contenders right now in Houston and Kansas. Everything else is kind of a pretty deep drop off of that in terms of net rankings. So I think we all know what's at stake and got to take care of business in those other games. It'll be intriguing. What's the third opponent in Vegas? You got Tennessee coming into the Dome, which will be loaded for bear. And then the conference. I mean, they got to win games. We could cross that bridge when we come to it and start talking about basketball season. But, we know that'll be, every game is going to be a big deal, and every game will reevaluate the entire program.
All right, Matt. Enjoy your last weekend off for probably a really long time. Thanks for coming on.
Yeah, that's what we're doing for. We're looking forward to it. Thanks, guys.
All right, voice of the Orange, Matt Park. We'll take a timeout. We'll wrap up hour number 1 next on